you mentioned before that, I kind of intertwine, record videos and then promotional videos along with just being a record collector or just talking about vinyl. And that's done purposely. I didn't want it to be where I'm just shoving records down everyone's throat every week, where it's like, buy my stuff, here's more of my stuff. I wanted it to be like, hey, I'm a person, I kind of like doing this, I love talking about music.
Hey everyone, welcome to the S.O.B Marketing Podcast, where we celebrate the S.O.B that you are, and if you haven't figured it out yet, we mean small-owned business. We don't mean S.O.B.
Listen, we know that as a small business owner, you are working hard on the daily to keep your business fully operational while trying to promote it. And while some days it may feel like the business is owning you, if we're being honest with each other, I bet you would admit that you wouldn't give up the insanity for anything.
Our commitment here at the S.O.B Marketing Podcast is to give you the real talk, what works when it comes to advertising, marketing, promoting your business, and then what doesn't really work.
And Chelsea and I promise to always keep the conversation real. All right, S.O.B small-owned businesses, we are back for another episode of the S.O.B Marketing Podcast. And today we have a very, very, very special guest with us that we are super excited to bring on and just kind of get all of his thoughts and tips for opening a storefront. But his name is Rob, and he is with Black Circle Records here in Summerville, South Carolina. And Rob recently, he had a smaller store and went towards opening a bigger storefront. So he made that transition. It looked pretty seamless, Rob. So you did a very, very good job.
Like, you can just call me a magician because it was far from seamless, but I appreciate it.
Now, do you want to start off by telling us, where can people find you online so that way they know for reference if they want to look you up and just kind of see what you've been doing on Reels and, social media? Where can they find you?
All across most of the platforms, it's Black Circle Records SC. So I'm on Instagram and Facebook and TikTok mostly. And then I have a website and everything like that. You can search me on Google and everything like that. But most of the stuff I do is on Instagram.
Excellent. So Chelsea, I know this is what's interesting. We meet a lot of really great business owners, and Chelsea happens to be a vinyl record girl. And so when she was all about wanting to get in there and kind of see what your collection looked like, we happened to meet you, and we thought, this is great because a lot of people, I think there's this trepidation about, I've been doing this in some sort of way and I've been dabbling in it, but to make the commitment of opening a storefront and, having hours of operation and having people come in there, there's a lot of coordination that goes with it. And then also the marketing changes just a little, right? Because now you're trying to drive people to actually come into a physical space.
Vivian, I think let's step back for a sec and ask Rob if you could just go into your small business, describing your path from, I know you were actually a vendor in Katie Mae's, and now you have a storefront. So maybe just give us a little bit more background about your small business.
Sure. Goes back way further than that, but I'll start at the point where we moved down to South Carolina from New York about 4 years ago. And I had done something similar to the booth that I had in Katie Mae's when I was in New York. But when we moved down here, I didn't have any plans to continue with the record business. I didn't know if there was any market for it. It's just that was just kind of on the back burner. But when we moved down here, I noticed that the only record stores were really far away. So and besides going all the way down to Charleston, if you wanted to pick up some vinyl, there was really no other place to go. A couple of the antique stores had, some vinyl selections, but it was really hit or miss, mostly miss. And I didn't even know if there was a market for vinyl, because I'm like, maybe just nobody is into vinyl down here, and that's why there's no record stores, So the way it really happened was I was driving through Somerville, and I noticed that Katie Mae's, they had just opened like literally a month earlier, and they were looking for vendors. And so I just kind of popped in and I introduced myself and I said, would you be interested in having me as a vendor for records? And she was like record albums? And I'm like, I'm like, yeah, I know it's weird. I just figured I'd throw it out there. And she's like, is there a market for it? I go, that's what I'm here to figure out, you know? So started out really small in the back of the store with like 2 little crates of records. It was like 100 records there. And my goal was I'm just gonna bombard social media with posts and all the marketing that I can do, because if there's any market for it, then I need them to find me. And if they can find me and they know that I'm here and they're interested in records, then at least I know that there's something and it's worth pursuing. And if there wasn't, then it was worth a shot, and then I can move on from there. So that's kind of what I did, and I was there for 3 years, and I kind of grew, like every 6 months, I basically grew into a larger booth. So it went from like a little tiny thing in the back of the store to like a larger wall space to like a mini booth and then a larger booth. And the amount of support that I got from the vinyl community locally was incredible. Like I had zero thought that there would be this much interest in records. Because of that, it kind of forced my hand into opening a business. It wasn't ever in like a thought of mine or really a plan, but I was like, if they want it, then I'll do it. That's kind of how it came about.
So what I love about that is that you were willing to test your theory out. You were willing to say, you know what, I don't need to go full blown, but first let me see if there's a desire and if there's demand out there for it. And then like you're saying, I'm just going to, put my little bat signal out there. And if they see it and they want it, they know where to find me. And that way you're creating this sort of, just experience where people are saying, oh, okay, if I'm in the Somerville area, because that's it's a 20-minute drive to Charleston. Well, we say that's probably now like 40 minutes with traffic.
Right.
But
right.
so,
yeah, it's
right.
definitely
So I
40
think
minutes. And as someone who lives in the Somerville general area, we found you because I was struggling. I don't want to drive all the way to Monster Music or all the way to downtown Charleston, West Ashley, Park Circle. Those places are fun to go to, but it's far away. So once I found you here in Somerville, perfect. I was so excited.
That's so awesome to hear. It's literally where I went with it, because I had the same experience. It's like, I'm never going to compete with Monster Music. They're huge. They were the biggest record store in the Southeast. They are the record store. But you don't always want to have to drive all the way there. So I kind of tried to fill like a small niche of, there's vinyl collectors everywhere, and not everybody wants to drive 20 minutes to and from the record stores, that are far away. And then, you may or may not come home with anything. So if there was a local option where if you wanted to go every other week or whatever, you're not really going out of your way. You can stop in, see if there's something there. You don't feel like you're, if you don't see anything that you like, you didn't really waste any time. You're close to home anyway. So it was kind of, like I said, it was a really small niche market, but once I started realizing it was there, that was my goal. It was like, I just want to be the local small little record shop that people can go to whenever they want to. I can't compete with those guys. I'm not going to try to compete. I just want to be another option for everybody.
So what I really like too is you had touched on this, and this is kind of the first point we want to make. Community is so important. And Chelsea and I had just done an episode we've been talking about, and the episode's going to come out tomorrow, but we were talking about how finding your niche, you're not going to be for everybody, but you are going to be for a select few. And those select few are going to be the people that you want for reoccurring sales. But tell me, how did community play a part in kind of nudging you forward? Because were you starting to hear your customers say like, hey, we would love for you to have more inventory? Or at what point did you decide, you know what, I can take that leap to a bigger storefront and I'll be okay?
That's a good question. It is, community was part of it. The community question is kind of a little different because I think I'm kind of more just starting to really get involved in the community because I have my own store. Beforehand, when I was a booth, I was kind of stuck with, there was only so much I could do because I was only there like once every week, and there was just not much I can do. Although I did attempt, like I worked with the Somerville High School tech team, and they built they built one of my record bins for me. I did something with the Somerville Orchestra. And then now I'm trying to do more with the Public Arts Center. So now I'm kind of getting more intertwined with the community aspect of it. How I got to the point where I decided that I think it can be an actual store probably had everything to do with just the growing support. The more I brought, the more people came, and I got really good feedback from everybody. And the social media posts played a big part on it as well, because I kind of utilized that to learn more about what else I should bring in stock. The excitement level when I brought one type of music in versus another type of music. If I brought in, an 80s collection, people flipped out. Like, they all wanted Madonna and U2 and Michael Jackson. So I was like, okay, well, now I know I got to bring more of that in. Then people asking me for like punk rock and these like ridiculously hard to find records that I'm like, yeah, I can get it for you, but you're probably the only person that wants that record.
Was that one of Chelsea's recent requests with this like a vinyl record she wants that I have no clue what it is?
No, you wanted the Struts, right?
I wanted the Struts.
Is that right?
Yes, that's right.
Yeah. That's not that hard to find. They're a good band. They're popular. That's I get some obscure requests like bands that I'm like, I don't even know who that is. Like, do you have? I can't even name it. It's like, I don't even know. I couldn't even give you a name. Like, that's how obscure they are. And I'm like, no, I don't. I'm like, I'm this little tiny store, and they're like, I don't know. But the social media aspect of it was the big part for me in feeling confident enough to go from having a vendor booth to starting my own business.
And I do want to point out one thing. This is what's interesting. I'm a big fan of I love Meg Ryan and Tom Hanks movies. And this reminds me of, Chelsea, is it You've Got Mail? It's You've Got Mail, where she owns that library, that store, the bookstore, and they come in and basically they're, the big bookstore. I feel like people are going back to wanting this personalization of, like what you just said. Chelsea can come to you when she goes in the store and says, hey, I'm looking for this record. I noticed you're not carrying it, but could you potentially find it for me? It's that relationship building that you just don't get these days with like bigger box stores anymore.
Yeah, 100%. There's a few different aspects to why vinyl, I think, is as popular as it is. And I think it's similar to other collectibles, comic books and video games and sports cards and things of that nature. But it's also the other side of it is like a bookstore, where the people who read love their books. They want to, even if they're not like collectors for collectible value wise or anything, they just like having books and they enjoy reading. I'm not a book person. My wife is a book person. She loves her books. I'm a music guy. So it's the same thing for me, except I'd rather have the record or some kind of physical media and own the bands that I love and the music that I love and stuff like that, as opposed to, there's always a time for streaming. You're in your backyard, you have your phone on you and you throw your earpods in and you're listening to it on your phone. But if you're home and you can have the experience of listening to an album start to finish, it's a totally different experience.
That's exactly the experience I have and why I love collecting records. I mean, streaming is great and I can listen to whatever I want at my fingertips, of course, but there's something about sitting down and just letting the record play and not skipping any songs, just listening through it all the way through. That's really meaningful to me. And it is a collector's thing too. Like, I want a record from all my favorite bands, sort of thing.
Definitely. Because you feel like it's part of being a fan. It's like, it's a different experience. I'm an older guy. I grew up in the 80s and 90s. And when, before the internet, if you were a fan of something, you collected the things that you were a fan of. And then streaming came around and it's like you can have the playlist on your phone or whatever, but it's not the same as owning a piece of, owning a concert ticket or owning a vinyl record from them. And like you're directly supporting the band and you're kind of showing off that I'm a fan,
Rob, have you been surprised by the age groups that are coming in to buy from you?
Yeah. There's the younger generation, it's one of my favorite parts. I'll see, 14, 15-year-old kid come in, and, there was one kid that came in. Oh, I apologize. I can't even remember his name. But he follows me on Instagram. He comes, I see his posts every once in a while, and he comes in, he sent me a message, and he's like, hey, I'm going to be coming in today. He asked what time I was going to be open till or whatever. Comes in with a Guns N' Roses shirt on. And the kid's like, he's probably 18, maybe 19. I don't know. He's college age or whatever. But I'm like, did you go see the concert? He's like, yeah. I'm like, you've seen Guns N' Roses and I haven't even seen Guns N' Roses. I'm like, so that, it's that stuff like that's amazing, because it's like you're so young to even know who that is. And then just to see him flipping through and grabbing all like the 90s grunge, which is like my era. Like the second somebody picks up a Pearl Jam record, I'm like, yes, I'm contributing to giving good music to people. It's like, it makes me feel good.
I am really interested too. We're talking about community, and you had mentioned you'd rattled off a couple of the ways that you had actually included. They weren't nonprofits, but they were local organizations. And I could tell you, there's this aspect where now when we're talking about community and marketing, everybody naturally thinks it's social media platforms, and it is. But I love the way that you are intertwining the local community and organizations with your social media, your Instagram reels and all that, because I have seen where you're doing this stuff with is it the Public Works? Is that?
Yeah, Public Art Center. Yeah.
Yes. So the Public Art Center, where you guys had, teamed up and done, I think it was a reel you were doing, you contributed so that they could do a raffle, giving out a vinyl record player and all this stuff. And it was just amazing to me because the video was very well done. But I think it's great because the other one that I watched, your other reel, was the one where you told this fascinating story about how you scored a vinyl record. Was it from Run DMC? Who was it again?
Oh, Grandmaster Flash.
Yes. And I watched that thing like 2 different times because I just love the way that you teed it up and you told the story. And it's fascinating me because I feel like what you're doing is you're not just saying, hey, I have to be on social media and that's the only way for people to find me. But I feel like you're integrating both of them so well that it's allowing you to kind of tap into both those, exponentially growing on social, like you said, with TikTok and all that. How'd that reel or how did that video do on TikTok? Did you post it on TikTok as well?
The Grandmaster Flash one?
Uh-huh.
It did okay. It did okay. I've had other videos do much better. I think I'm playing the game with TikTok. We're trying to learn the algorithm and what hooks in the beginning are gonna, I've been doing TikTok for about a year, and I've hit on like a couple of really 4 million views and a couple of like really big ones.
Wow.
But those ones, none of them, I don't know. I didn't expect those ones, the ones that got really big. And then there's ones that I'm like, oh, this is a great story. This one's going to do well. And then it gets like 1,000 views. And I'm like, so I'm still playing around with that part.
You have to answer this question for us because Chelsea and I we say this to people. Going viral, so I would say 4 million views on TikTok is pretty viral, right?
Yeah, that's huge. Mm-hmm.
Okay, did it convert to actual followers for you?
Oh, a lot of followers. I can tell you it definitely converted a ton of followers. I've had other ones too that were, I think I had 1 million, I had another 800,000. So it converts a lot of followers. The only problem is that I don't know, I have yet to really transition those followers into customers, or there's been almost no online sales, but that wasn't really the point. Like the first year for me in TikTok was just meant to play around and learn it. I'm like, whatever happens on this, at least I'm learning what it is to do videos. And you can see a natural progression from like my first video where I was like, hi, I am Rob and I don't know what I'm doing, to like a year later where I'm a lot more conversational, And so that was the goal for me. It was never really about making money off TikTok or anything like that.
Rob, which we don't believe for one second that you were not charming on video because you have a fabulous personality. I highly doubt you were robotic.
Totally. Go watch the first videos. Go watch those first videos. I look at it and I cringe. I'm like, oh man, that was so bad, But you have to learn. You have to start somewhere. Yeah. And I'm like, I knew I was going to be bad, but at some point, you just start feeling more comfortable, and then you kind of start knowing what people like when you're making a video and then 5 or 6 people comment on the exact same part of the video, they're like, okay, I said something in a certain way there that really resonated. So I have to take that into my next video and learn how to do that with whatever it is I'm talking about next, and kind of make that same thing. Thank you for calling me charming, but like I said, I definitely, those first ones were I don't know. Even my kids are like, Dad, what are you doing? I'm like,
well, we want to remind listeners, Chelsea and I, if you are listening to this podcast, go onto TikTok, and it should be under Black Records SC, correct, Rob?
Black Circle Records SC.
Black Circle Records SC. So go on there and look at his videos and look at the ones that he's talking about where he hit those 1 million views, and look at what kind of stands out. I think it's always good for us, not that you want to copy what someone's doing, but like you're saying, you take the pieces where you're like, oh, wow, he did this. I don't happen to do that at the beginning, so I'm not capturing people's attention. So I think it definitely helps to see what works on those platforms and kind of take those little bits and pieces.
Yeah, and there's definitely a difference between platforms as well. I've had videos on TikTok that did okay, that did very well on Instagram, and I've had the opposite. You mentioned before that, I kind of intertwine, record videos and then promotional videos along with just being a record collector or just talking about vinyl, and that's done purposely. I didn't want it to be where I'm just shoving records down everyone's throat every week, where it's like, buy my stuff, here's more of my stuff. I wanted it to be like, hey, I'm a person, I kind of like doing this, I love talking about music. I'm not even like a huge vinyl collector, I have a very small collection, but I love talking about music. So, and I've had experiences and cool purchases, and I've built up knowledge over the years that I'm like, there's stuff that I can talk about, and sometimes those videos do really well, and other times it's like ho hum, where it's like, I'm like, oh, I thought it was a really cool topic, but it gets like 200 views, but I like doing the mix and match where I don't feel like I'm pushing. I did sales for so long and I hated being a pushy salesperson. So for me, it's like, I'm just a person. If you like me and you like my products, come buy it. I'm not going to push it. I'm going to show you what I have, but I'm also going to try to do stuff that's informative and entertaining and, just normal everyday conversation that I can have with somebody else through a screen,
Rob,
Chelsea,
can I
what's
just
that percentage
say
you always tell people?
Percentage.
You always tell people that they have to do, is it 70% like education and 30% selling? Or 80-20, what is it?
Why'd you even ask me? You knew it. It's 70-30. And I was going to say, Rob is just a marketer's dream, because that is the point. You don't want to just be selling, and pushing. Small businesses have a wonderful opportunity to grow when they actually take the time to talk with their audience, instead of talking at someone. So yeah, it's 70-30. 70% needs to be information. 30% is going to be your promotional stuff.
Let me just throw in there I listen to you guys all the time, first of all. I enjoy all your content. I listen to podcasts, like business podcasts, marketing podcasts. Like I consume that when I'm driving for work and all that stuff. Because I'm just trying to learn how to run a business, how to, be smarter about stuff. And I've been doing the marketing part kind of came more natural to me because I have a little bit of a marketing background. So it does, I'm not afraid of it. I'm not, intimidated by it. But listening to you guys a lot of times brings me back to my roots, like where I started in marketing. And I'm like, oh, I haven't done that in years. And that worked really well. I need to go back to that. So like one of the things that, when you're doing the marketing, you're kind of trying what's next, and you keep moving like to different levels of marketing. But those basics is really where the smartest marketing is, because it's so basic that it's so useful that you almost neglect it. Like you forget about it and you're like, oh, I got to get back to that. So every time I listen to you guys, you say something that I haven't done in a while, and I'm like, oh, I need to go back to that. So your podcasts are extremely helpful, and I appreciate you guys doing it.
Well, thanks. We appreciate that. And I do know, I will say It's hard. Chelsea can probably attest to this too. Even as marketers, like it's that shiny thing syndrome, right? Where you're looking at something and you're like, oh, that's cool. New technology, I'll do it. And then really the stuff that's like tried and true, the basic stuff, email marketing, people always say they're like, email's dead. No, it actually converts really well if you're doing it consistently, right?
No, so I don't mean to cut you off, but I am one of the emails dead people. So you ladies need to convince me why email, because I never check if I get a spam message. I mean, I'm old school. I have an AOL email address from 1995.
Whoa.
Okay, it's the same one. Okay, and I think it's got like 870,000 emails unread or some crazy number, you know? And anytime I sign up for anything, I use that email address because I don't read any of the emails. I read what's important to me and not. So I need convincing that email marketing works. I need you ladies to convince me how that works.
Well, I'm going to say just right off the bat, and we say this all the time for business owners and for marketers alike, you are not your target audience. So
Very true.
what
you
do
are 100% true.
Is not necessarily is not necessarily what your target audience likes. I'm not going to lie. I check all of my emails. Vivian does not look at any of her emails.
No, that is not true. And I will tell you, I am so glad, Rob, because now you take the cake for most unread or biggest inbox, because that used to be me. Chelsea would give me so much shit about it. And it was just not, I read them. The thing is, I only open a certain amount, but I will say this, as far as your email, I always think that the problem isn't the actual mechanism or the platform you're using. I think sometimes we're not thinking creative enough. So for example, your people are already reoccurring and coming through the door. If I were you, I would think of a way to tie an email, and you might start off just doing it once a month, so it's low key, and maybe just say, hey, this month, here are some of the new vinyls we got in, and whatever information they're wanting that would drive them into the store a little more, or hey, I'm going to do a 20% off, whatever it is. But the key is to trying to figure out behavior wise how you can change their behavior so that they can start to open the email, because you have enough relevant information that they're like, oh, I love seeing that in my inbox because I know it means he's giving me, I don't know, the latest preview on X, Y, and Z.
That makes a lot of sense. Chelsea, you hit the nail on the head. I feel very seen right now. You're like, you are not your target audience. I'm like, yes, I know I'm not my target audience. Damn it. So that was awesome. You convinced me with just that one line. That was amazing.
Well, and I do that all the time. Like for TikTok, I know it's going to sound weird. I know I'm Gen Z, but I don't like TikTok. Okay, that doesn't mean that our target audience isn't on TikTok. I'm going to have to get over it and post on TikTok.
You'd be amazed at the audience that's there when it does hit. I think that it's beyond anything else. I've never really had like a viral Instagram. I've had thousands of views on Instagram, but nothing like what TikTok can give you. And it happens fast. Like you post it and you go to bed and you wake up the next morning and you're like, oh my God, 500,000 views and like 20,000 comments. I'm like, how do I even respond? It's pretty incredible. But I've actually even had good experiences as far as like the comments haven't been real negative or nasty. The ones that are, I just kind of laugh it off. I don't even respond to any of it, but because you just know that that's going to, when something goes that viral, it's one thing if a few thousand people, but like when it gets to like 1 million people have seen your video, someone's going to, like, yeah, dude, you got, big eyebrows or whatever it is that you're going to talk to me, they're going to say something about me, so you just kind of let that stuff go. But the audience that's there is unlike anything else. So I definitely recommend, if you haven't dipped your toes in that, at least try it give yourself a few months and try it out. And marketing, especially if you are, if your face is on screen, it's not for everybody. You don't necessarily have to be the person on screen. You can create videos in other ways where you're not even the focal point of it. So I think if anybody does try it and you actually get to the point where you reach a large audience, there's the convincing factor. The problem is that it's so few and far between when it does happen. But you get 20,000 views on any video, you're like, wow, a lot of people viewed my product, so it's worth it.
I think the other thing to remember too is we have a tendency of forgetting how quickly this world changes and how quickly we use technology different. So there's this nice little bell curve in marketing where they talk about, and it's funny because I was always in that latter group of people that I'm not going to be an innovator. I'm not trying stuff first. I'm going to let people try it first, figure it out. And then I'm going to be the late person that's to the game and saying, oh, okay, now that I see that works, now I'm willing to dip my toe in it. But so there's this nice little bell curve that happens with TikTok. I think a lot of people, small business owners, still think that it's for a younger generation, that it skews younger in age, and it doesn't. There have been a ton of reports that show that people that are now over 40, over 35 are starting to use TikTok even more.
Generation X loves TikTok. Yeah. You'd be amazed at how many people my age are like, we can talk to people, and you're talking to a younger audience, but they're not even the ones that you're talking to. You're talking to Gen X. Gen X loves TikTok. There's a huge audience for it. Obviously millennials. I'm kind of a Zennial. I'm in between. I'm at tail end of Gen X and early millennial, and there's probably just as many of us as there are Gen Z and younger on there. So yeah, don't feel like you're talking to a bunch of kids when you're on TikTok, because you're not. There's a huge audience for anyone between the age of 30 and 50, really.
All I can think of is, and I've shared some of these videos with Vivian because you had sent an article. Oh, what was the name of the article? The point was there's a lot of grandparents on TikTok now. And you had sent me and Dad an article about it. And I was like, oh yeah, I follow one of them. And you were so confused. I sent you some of her videos. Oh, I can't remember her name. But it's like, oh, get ready with me to go look at my husband's grave and stuff like that.
Wow.
It's Chelsea likes anything that's depressing. So if it has to do with death, she's right there. She's like,
isn't your favorite band Smashing Pumpkins?
They're one of my favorite bands.
Smashing Pumpkins is her favorite. Yes.
So there you go. Right? Speaks
we
volumes.
have Billy Corgan to thank for that. So Rob, one of the things, when we're talking about community, the other thing that you did really well was transitioning when you were about to open your bigger storefront, you had your own place. You did this thing where you were still preparing the space, but it was almost like the way you did this, and this is why I say it looked effortless, because you would get on Instagram or these platforms and you would say, hey, we're going to be open this weekend. Our doors aren't open permanently yet, but if you want to come in, drop me a message. It was almost like it felt a little VIP, but it wasn't VIP, right? So you were giving them the opportunity to say, let me come in and preview it and see it before you officially open the doors. I thought that was fabulous.
Thank you. That wasn't a planned thing, because our plan was really to have the doors open earlier. So that kind of came out of necessity more than anything. And once my wife and I realized that we need to get doors open, and we were being delayed just by all the things that we didn't realize about running a business, which there's a lot of those. My wife's like, well, why don't we just open on the weekends or something? The records are ready, so why don't we just do something like that? Once she put that idea in my head, I was like, you know what, that's actually a good idea. And I kind of started framing it around, Chelsea, you're probably familiar with Vivian. I don't know how much you know about records or record stores or whatever. But there's a thing called Record Store Day. Are you ladies familiar?
Yep, I went to Monster Music for Record Store Day this year. Yeah,
so there you go. So the thought for me was, well, if on Record Store Day, there's it's almost like a giant event, and people line up outside the door, and it's like this whole. It almost feels like an exclusive private event. You're part of this cool group of vinyl collectors, right? Like it's like your crew. And a lot of times, because it's gotten so big, they started doing it in sections where you would get like a number the day before. You'd go to Monster Music or the local record store and they would give you a number, and then you would show up at a certain time, and then they would let in X amount of people, because you can't have 400 people coming in at the same exact time. It's too chaotic.
Right.
So that was the thought I had with the private events, because it was like, well, this is just me. I don't know how many people are going to show up. So if I were to do this, why don't I do this in 2-hour time slots? I'll limit it to, I just threw out like an arbitrary number. I'm like, let me limit it to 12 people or 12 appointments per time slot. And then this way, not everybody's showing up at 10 o'clock in the morning. It's spread out throughout the day. I can kind of control it a little bit. It gives me a little bit of a better idea. And then the more I started thinking about that, the more that seemed like it was like exclusive. And I was like, oh, this is kind of cool. I like this. I like the feel of it. And then I'd made it where it wasn't, I'm not opening the doors to the world. I'm opening the doors to my followers, the people that are on Instagram, the people that are on Facebook, that have been following me through the last 3 years, that the buildup of the new opening it was every day there was, when are you opening? I can't wait for you to open. I heard messages so many times that it was like, I have to get the doors open. When I did that, it was almost like a thank you to the people that helped me get to the point that I was. It was, you guys get the first shot of going to see the store and picking out the records that I've been built up over the last, month and a half. You guys get first choice. It's not just, Joe Schmo off the street. It's you, because you have been there for me since I had a couple of crates in the back of 𝐂𝐍𝐄𝐃. So that was kind of how it went about. And then once the first one worked, then I was like, well, I got to do this again. And I basically did it. I did it 3 times over the course of 6 weeks before we actually opened up.
I absolutely loved it. I think it was a great marketing decision. It was such a good idea. And I love how you just explained that you got the idea from Record Store Day. Also, this year for Record Store Day, I got an exclusive. You can't see it. It's on my wall. You can't see it. But it's an Arlie record. I have it framed on my wall because it's like a Record Day exclusive vinyl.
Exclusive.
That wasn't the point, though. The point was, I like how you explained that you got this idea from Record Store Day, because that's a great example of looking at what other people are doing and letting that inspire you. You don't have to take exactly what they're doing. It's not like you try to make your own day, but you took the idea of this, here's an exclusive kind of, this is your number, this is when you're coming in. You took that idea and you made it your own. And again, honestly, it was a wonderful marketing decision. Perfect. It was so good.
Thank you.
And what I like about it is very similar to that, but I love that you did something that was not, most people, I think they always feel like they have to do something big. I need to put an ad out. I need to do a ribbon cutting. I need to do X, Y, and Z. And yes, those things are all great for different reasons. But I love that what you did is you went grassroots and you were like, you know what? I'm going to keep it small. I'm going to keep it manageable so I can kind of test it out, see if it works that first day, and then open it up. But I will tell you, you did such a great job of making it feel exactly like what you said. When Chelsea was, because I think she got our date to go in there and I got to just tag along, it felt very, like I said, VIP. And I know that's not, it's weird, but it was just, there was something about you like not having the doors open quite yet, but you were saying, hey, you guys come in and get first pick. That was, right. I think that went a long way.
Thank you. I know it part of me thought I might come across as like snooty, it's like, you're not allowed in. Like there's like a velvet rope, where I just wanted it to be where the people that literally came and bought records from the last 3 years, they deserve that. I mean, they're the whole reason that the store is open to begin with. So, if the people outside that want to come in, that are trying to peek in the window and they're like, how come I can't come in? Well, you can come in a few weeks, but these people have supported me for the last 3 years. So got to thank them.
And let's talk about resiliency as far as being a business owner, because the thing is really, like you said, it wasn't you guys had intended to have the doors open, but because of whatever reason, I'm sure it probably was partially like construction or upfit or, whatever,
Yep.
you physically weren't prepared to open it, but you made the best of it. And you thought, well, great, if I can't open it, let me do previews.
Right.
Let me, so I love that because it's things not working out in your favor, but you're spinning it to where, you're turning it into a positive for your business.
I think you kind of have to. I mean, that's my perspective, at least. I don't like having something like the reason that I fail at something. It's it's the woe is me attitude. That's not me. So it's make lemons out of lemonade. Pivot. If you guys watch Friends, where Ross and they're trying to get the chair down the stairs, pivot. Right. So just do what you need to do to get, to take your next steps.
Do you love making crafts and working on your small business, but struggle to get them in front of customers?
Do craft fairs, events, or pop-ups leave you feeling overwhelmed or frustrated?
Introducing Rock Your Fair, the course designed to help you succeed in the world of craft fairs, pop-ups, and events, created by 2 marketing professionals with over 15 years of experience. Rock Your Fair is perfect for anyone who's new to the game or just wants to step up their game.
Our step-by-step approach will guide you through everything you need to know, from choosing the right events, to setting up your booth, to marketing your products effectively.
And you know what? You'll also get access to us for personalized coaching and feedback so you can put your best foot forward.
Do not let craft fairs, pop-ups, and events hold you back. Sign up for Rock Your Fair today and start rocking your way to success.
For a limited time, get access to our free mini course. Simply head over to our website at www.theseasonmarketer.com and click on workshops.
So Rob, I do want to ask you, Google Maps, Apple Maps, that sort of thing. I know you're pivoting from being a vendor, a booth in someone else's store. How have you pivoted now to owning your own storefront?
So the fun part of it is that I can really control the marketing end of it and the promotion, because I can create events and I can do whatever I want. It's my store. So that's the fun part of it to me. But there's so much, like, as far as like Google Maps and Apple Maps, getting on, on the Google search engine, all that stuff. So important for just to have the correct information up there. And I need to update Google more often than I do with pictures, and just, you can update it every day if you wanted to. It's almost like social media, where it's like you can post every day. I just don't know how it's viewed on the outside, because I don't really use it a lot. But again, I'm not my target audience. I learned that lesson. Thank you, Chelsea. Making sure I was, on Google Maps, on Apple Maps, the pin was in the right place and everything like that. It was definitely something that was important. It was almost priority one. It's like, how am I going to be found? How are people going to find me? When you look up record stores and you hit record store near me and you hit it, I better show up. Even if I'm not the top one, I better be in there. So that was definitely a priority for me, getting that up and running.
But so it's worked out though, because I mean, you show up on all the stuff, and I think it's going to be great once you start to take some of those, I don't want to say customers, but the traffic from the downtown stores up into Somerville. That'd be pretty cool.
That's been my goal, and the hardest part. How do if you're anywhere near Somerville and you look up record store, I pop up. If you go to Charleston, and I've driven down there and I type in record store, I'm like, I got to scroll. I got to expand the map. I'm like, where am I? So if anybody has any hints or tips of how I can get my record store more seen 30 miles from here, that would be extremely helpful, because I've yet to figure it out. But I've listened to multiple podcasts. I've read articles. I'm relentless. Like, I need to figure this out.
Google reviews, increase the reviews, but then also I will say they do this weird thing with the geography. They're so geography based that it's hard, just because they want to give the person something nearby.
Right.
But Rob, I do know you we're going to have to wrap this up soon, but I do have just a few questions I want to ask you because you're a really good SOB, small owned business, not the other kind of SOB.
Are you guys do you know anything about old school wrestling?
No. I do a little bit.
All right. So there's this guy back in the day. His name was Stone Cold Steve Austin, and he was the toughest SOB in all of wrestling. So I'd like to be the toughest SOB that's on your podcast. Could I do that?
Chelsea, can we please, done and done. You are.
Yes, absolutely.
And Chelsea, we need to get t-shirts made with Stone Cold Steve Austin and then Rob's picture on it. So one of Rob and then one of Stone Cold Steve Austin.
Oh, wow. That would be epic.
Love it.
That would be awesome.
So I do want to say, because you have done so well, what is the most challenging part of being a business owner to you?
The toughest part is really probably balancing my time in trying to get the business established and running the business, and then the time with my family. There's so much that pulls me away business-wise that I almost sometimes, I definitely go overboard. And I spend too much time where it's like, next thing I know, I'm like, it's been like an entire week and I've barely, done anything with my family. So that's the toughest part of it. And now that I've noticed more of it, I think, I gotta kind of curtail it a little bit. And I think now that the whole beginning part of opening the business is kind of over with, I can kind of balance it a little bit better. But that's for sure been the hardest part of it.
And then the most rewarding part of it.
The most rewarding part is, for me, now this is like a weird one, but the journey. And this is something that if you would have asked me like a year ago, a couple of years ago, it wouldn't even been a thought. But over the last like year or so, the more I listen to like business podcasts and marketing and stuff like that. Like, I don't know if you guys are familiar with Gary Vaynerchuk. Yeah. He's like a big marketing guy. He kind of points out a lot that like there's so much of it like that the business owners that are happy are the ones that are really appreciating the journey that they're on and not just waiting to be, a CEO or like a big, whatever. So I kind of took note of that and I realized how far that I've come in this journey of being a business owner that I never thought I would even be 10 years ago. So enjoying the process and knowing that every time something pops up, I'm learning something new. And whatever that's going to lead to in 10 years, to me, is like the most exciting part, because I don't know where I'm going to be in 10 years. I don't know where this business is going to be or how, how big it can be or where it's going to take me. But every day is something new and I'm learning something new about it. And I know that at some point, that thing that I learned, I'm going to put into running the business in some way down the line. So that entire future, the journey where I've come from and where I want to go in the future, is the reason that I get up and I'm excited about doing all this.
We want to have you back when you're opening your second store, because I get the feeling that you're not going to be a one and done guy.
Second, I want 10. No, my family would.
There you go. See, every store you open, you get to come back.
Yes. All right. That means you guys are going to have lots of podcasts, which is a really good thing. So.
I mean, I hope so.
Rob, if you could just let people know how they can connect with you and find you so we can sell some more records, get people into the music.
Yes. I'm all about introducing people to new music, and especially if it's 90s music, because that's my stuff. So I have a small location in downtown Somerville, right across from the YMCA. It's 123 South Cedar Street. You'll see the signs for the Curated Home, which is my wife's section of the store, and Black Circle Records. The records are in the back. So when you look in the window, you probably won't see the records, but I assure you that they're in there. I am on most social media at Black Circle Records SC. And that's probably the best way to get in contact with me. You can on Instagram, on TikTok, on Facebook. You can message me if you're looking for something, or if you just want to chat about music or business or marketing. I love all that stuff. So this is like being a guest on this podcast is awesome for me, because I get to geek out about marketing. I'm like, yes, it's awesome.
Well, we really appreciated having you on our podcast, and I hope people do message you asking for help finding specific records, but they better not be asking about the struts because that one's going to be mine. Thank you, everyone, for listening to this episode. We hope that you guys come back next week. If you know anyone who might be interested in learning more about marketing for their small-owned business, if you know any SOBs out there, bring them our way so that we can help them. And just go out there and be the best SOB you can be.
Listen to these ladies. They know what they're talking about.
Thank you.
Thank you, Rob. Thanks so much.